Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Good to be back with you. Sorry I couldn't be here yesterday, but my voice just wouldn't let me. I tell you what, we had an absolutely fantastic Preterist Pilgrim weekend this last weekend. By the way, we had a very good attendance, and as you know, we offered the live stream video of our conference free of charge. Now, we'll still be glad to take any gifts that you'd like to offer for that service because we still haven't received enough gifts to fully pay for that. But here's the point. We had a very good physical attendance, so to speak. As of this morning, we have had almost, not quite, but we have had almost 6,000 views of the 3 days video. That is absolutely incredible. I want to thank you for your interest. And look, I've just got to say this. See, my voice is still weak. I almost lost my voice. I had laryngitis yesterday. Fact is, I did 3 days absolutely nonstop talking. I mean, So anyway, I'm constantly amused by the fact that the opponents of eschatology are constantly saying no one's interested in covenant eschatology. Preterism is dying out. Just people leaving over. They just really, really, really like to say, and they like to hope that no one's interested. Well, if no one's interested, I wonder why we've had, as of this morning, Tuesday morning, just 2.5 days after we've closed, we've had almost 6,000 views of the Preterist Pilgrim weekend. I'm not quite sure. I have no way of knowing literally, but as I view other activities and what have you, I'm not quite sure that there's been another Preterist activity that has had that kind of viewership in that short a time. It really is quite amazing. And again, I want to thank you for your interest. I apologize for my voice. It still doesn't want to cooperate. All right. I want to get back to our study of the resurrection of 1 Corinthians chapter 15. It's been a while, hasn't it? We've been looking at the concept of the new heaven and the new earth. After all, Revelation chapter 20, 21, 22 posit the new heaven and new earth at the time of the resurrection. I don't know of anybody that really denies that. Well, here's the fact. The doctrine of the new heaven and the new earth is from the Old Testament, as I've been sharing with you. The doctrine of the redemption of creation of Romans chapter 8 is from the Old Testament. I've been sharing with you that the key foundational text for the new heaven, new earth are from Isaiah. Now, that doesn't mean that other passages don't talk about them, but, we could expand this topic alone on and on and on. I've been sharing thoughts with you from Isaiah chapter 65. Whatever else we may think about the new heaven and new earth, the prophecy of Isaiah 65 as one of the foundational prophecies of the new creation places the creation of the new heaven and the new earth at the time of the destruction of Old Covenant Israel. Now listen to me very carefully. You have to catch the power of this. Not one single futurist eschatology has or teaches the coming of the new heaven and the new earth, the literal new heaven and the new earth. Not one of them teaches the arrival of the literal physical new heaven and new earth at the time of the destruction of Old Covenant Israel. There's something wrong here, because that's exactly what Isaiah teaches. So if your doctrine of the new heaven and the new earth does not include, does not contain the reality that the new heaven and the new earth does not come until and does not come without the destruction of Old Covenant Israel, then your eschatology is wrong. Pure and simple, there's no way out of it. Now let me show you what that means. If you accept the fact that Isaiah 65 is one of the foundational prophecies of the coming new heaven and new earth, and you take it as a prediction of the so-called end of time, then one of two things is a reality. Number one, Israel, Old Covenant Israel after the flesh, remains God's covenant people until the end of time, and at the end of time, she is destroyed. After all, Isaiah 65 has Israel destroyed to bring in the new creation. Secondly, if you identify Israel here as the church, and so the new heaven and the new earth comes at the so-called end of time, then that means that the church is destroyed at the end of time. Now remember, in my last video on this, I showed how an increasing number of people trying to avoid the problems, the clear-cut teaching of Isaiah 65, they tell us, oh, well, yeah, Isaiah 65 predicted, a kind of new heaven and new earth in AD 70. Yeah, I admit to that, but that's typological. That's foreshadowing the real end. Well, if Isaiah 65 predicted the arrival of new heaven and new earth in AD 70, then guess what? There was no physical new heaven and new earth of any kind in AD 70. Planet Earth was still here. Same rocks and trees, bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes. So how does that typify a literal physical new creation? Furthermore, if you say that AD 70 was typological and what happened in AD 70 will happen on a grander scale at the so-called end of time, then you have to admit, okay, Old Covenant Israel was destroyed in AD 70, then what church or what group of people, what covenant people is destroyed at the end of time? Old Covenant Israel would be destroyed and a new people would be created with a new name. Okay, what covenant people is destroyed at the end of time, and what new covenant people is created, and what is the new name that is created at the end of time? Folks, look, you can't just make these willy-nilly theological claims without seeing what it demands. And so I ask you again, does your eschatology have a place for it in the doctrine of the new heaven and new earth? Does it provide for the destruction of Old Covenant Israel after the flesh, being destroyed at the so-called end of time? If your futurist eschatology believes and accepts, as virtually everyone admits, if you believe and accept that Isaiah 65 is the foundational source, it's the fountain from which New Testament eschatology of the new creation flows. Okay, if you admit that, but if you deny that Old Covenant Israel will be destroyed at the end of time to bring in this new heaven and new earth, then you've misinterpreted Isaiah chapter 65. You've misunderstood the doctrine of the new heaven and the new earth. Isaiah 65 teaches without any doubt, without equivocation, it is absolutely undeniable. This new creation would come in when Old Covenant Israel would be destroyed. Thus, once again, since 2 Peter 3, since Revelation 21, it's interesting, my center column references give 2 Peter 3, Revelation 21, as side references, referencing Isaiah 65. Well, it's not inspired, I know that, but I'm just simply pointing out that's what the huge majority of commentators agree on. Okay. So once again, if 2 Peter 3 is drawing on Isaiah, if Revelation is drawing on Isaiah, then you cannot make 2 Peter 3 and Revelation chapter 21 future without positing the destruction of Old Covenant Israel at the end of time, and thereby teaching that Old Covenant Israel remains God's covenant people until the end of time. That's a problem, folks. And we've got more on Isaiah chapter 65 and the new creation on the flip side. In the meantime, go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Order a copy of my book, 8070, A Shadow of the, quote, real, unquote, question mark. That book is an extensive discussion of whether or not AD 70 was a type of what will still happen at the end of time. Mention that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll pay your shipping. Well, thanks for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. And again, we've got more on Isaiah 65, the new creation, the resurrection. So we'll see you on the flip side.